Through rain-streaked car windows, the Bauer family finds themselves lost in the dark of night while on vacation. Quick, frenetic bursts of lightning cut the air, and is the only light to guide them in this opening sequence. It's the kind of beginning that should key you into the type of story that's about to be told, as filmmaker Stuart Gordon and writer Ed Naha constantly play with the tropes normally associated with old tales for children in this film. The film is a dark fairy tale, first and foremost, and they waste no time letting you know. During the storm, the car becomes trapped in a thick mud puddle, and the Bauer family is forced to on foot try and find shelter for the night. And they quickly find that they have actually been stranded near a large manor home and decide to try and stay there to wait out the storm. But when no one comes to the door, they decide to break a window and climb in anyways, and they're greeted by Gabriel and Hilary, two elderly doll makers who live in the house, who greet them to stay the night, along with 3 others who also broke into the house because of the storm. But as the film goes along, the people inside the house begin to notice that not is all as it seems. That the dolls of the house appear to move when not being observed, and that if you do something that you know you shouldn't do while inside the house, you seem to be quickly punished for it. The film quickly turns into a haunted house-like feature, complete with a storm and 6 unlikely people trapped overnight, with 2 mysterious figures and their dolls that seem to come to life to do their bidding. The production levels of this movie are also quite good considering the budget that they had to work with. The film was shot in Italy to save money on tax reasons, and they knew that for this kind of story to be believable, the house in which the film takes place had to look as real as possible. So they actually designed and built an entire mansion from scratch, and to justify the cost of the construction, Stuart Gordon actually filmed 2 movies in the structure, Dolls and 1986's From Beyond. But From Beyond actually came out a full year before Dolls did, even though Dolls was filmed first, because of the long and arduous task of completing the effects and stop-motion animation on Gabriel's toys. But the decision to delay the film a year to complete the effects, I think, really pays off, as the animated dolls in the film really add a unique feeling to the viewing experience that you won't find in a lot of other movies. But it does at times suffer from a few tonal issues, which is in part due to the strange nature in which the film came about. You see, Charles Band, the producer of the film, is a horror movie powerhouse. He has directed 56 projects and produced nearly 300 others. He has had his hands involved in a lot of other franchises and films, and if you haven't seen one of his movies, then you've probably at least heard of a few of them. At the time, Band was getting films made and greenlit by coming up with an intriguing title and poster design without even knowing what the final film would be about. So in the mid-80s, Band came up with the title of Dolls, and commissioned an artist to create this poster, and he hired Ed Naha to write the film based on the poster after the project had already been greenlit. You can tell how Band originally intended the film to turn out when he came up with the title and the poster design, because you can see in his work on movies like the Puppet Master series, Blood Dolls, Devil Dolls, Doll Graveyard, Ginger Dead Man, and When Puppets and Dolls Attack, that he really likes slasher movies where small things are the main antagonists. But Naha and Gordon seem to be more intent on giving the film a more dreamy and fairy tale-like experience, rather than making a traditional slasher flick. The 2 opposing forces and conflicting ideologies on how to approach this film at times creates a strange and surreal kind of tone. So while most of the movie feels like a family-friendly haunted house story, there's a few odd scenes that are out of place with their level of gore compared to the tone of the rest of the film. The filmmakers and the producer eventually came to a compromise, and most of the violence that resulted in blood that was filmed for the movie was actually taken out while editing, except for a few choice examples, such as a scene based on the movie poster that the film is based on. But in a way, that's part of the charm as well. Dolls is a strange movie, and I love it for that, because from the wonderful sets, to costumes, to acting decisions, props, camera angles, and traditional stop-motion animation, Dolls manages to ooze charm out of every minute of its campy, compact runtime in a really impressive and special way. So, it's a real shame then that in 1987, when the film was released, it was a commercial flop, grossing only $3.5 million on a $2 million budget, causing the film to fall into relative obscurity, resulting in it being mostly forgotten today. The feelings I have for this movie are, in a way, a lot like how I feel about Return to Oz, that was released 2 years earlier, as both have a similar dreamlike approach to horror, have strong moral lessons for both child and adult audiences, and their use of practical effects and stop motion are done in masterful ways. If you like Child's Play, you'll probably like this. as would you if you liked Reanimator, Gordon's previous film, because they are really similar in tone at times, but Dolls has significantly less blood and violence. You should also watch this if you're a fan of the Puppet Master franchise at all, because Guy Rolfe, who is easily the standout performance in this film, plays Andre Toulon in 4 movies of that series. And Dolls is probably the reason that he later got his job in Puppet Master, because of Charles Band's connection to both films. It's a movie that you could also watch and share with older children as well, which is really the audience that I feel that this film was made for, as the violence that is in this movie isn't overly intense, being that most of it was removed in the editing process. And I think it would make a wonderful introductory film to the horror genre for any younger viewers that you know that may be curious around Halloween. It is a movie that anyone can watch and get some enjoyment out of it. It's playful, it's fun, and it has a few good scares too. It's an important movie to watch and remember, not just because it's fun, because at the end of the day the film is about the kindness of strangers and what it means to be true to your neighbor and your fellow man. It is the rare kind of horror film that actually tries to be wholesome and succeeds in it. Gabriel and Hilary open their home to anyone who needs it, and those that are kind and good people survive the judgment of the house, and those that are wicked fall victim to the toys. They are the perfect fairy tale villains, because they aren't real villains at all. They genuinely care about what happens to Judy, the film's young protagonist, and make that well known throughout the movie. Over the course of the film, 6 different people break into their house to get out of the storm, and the 2 hosts don't do anything to them except welcome them in. The horror only goes into effect when those that have been welcomed in do something bad to another person in the house. They aren't sadistic horror villains, they simply want to teach the difference between right and wrong in their own fairy tale kind of way. And I think that this movie is great for that reason alone, and should be watched and remembered and treasured as a Halloween horror classic. Because while most other doll-themed horror movies are treated like regular slasher films, Dolls goes out of its way to use toys to comment on the purity of childhood, and how that is something that should be held on to forever throughout one's life, and not thrown away with age and maturity. Like all fairy tales, Dolls is a metaphor on life, and Gabriel and Hilary stand as symbols of the idea of the benefits of not letting go of youth and childhood, and embracing your inner child, even late into life. Because children are not born with hate or bitterness. It is an acquired trait that causes cruelty and savageness, and that is really the point that this movie is trying to make, and that is why it should be remembered. It is a movie that says that there is value in finding meaning in fun as you age, that you should always try and find time for play, and that you're never too old for dolls.